it's this balloon structure which is going to be flying this evening, and inside each of the balloons is some electronics and some lights, some LEDs, which are able to create many different colors. There's sensors on the electronics, which mean that you can control them using your typical DVD or television remote. The purpose of the project really was to explore this idea that to get people out of their homes using a remote control, which is usually a kind of individualistic, atomized relationship where you only choose a channel or you choose a track on your stereo system. And in this case, I wanted to look at what happens when people actually come out and together in a kind of community, in a group, are actually using their remote controls to perform something, actually to bring something to life. And so that's the kind of summary of the project. It's actually very difficult to test because it costs almost as much to test as it does to fly the whole thing, and one can never really predict exactly what it's going to do in public. You never really know how things are going to respond when there are, let's say, dozens or hundreds of people doing something, and it's very difficult to simulate that kind of thing. So a lot of the programming work involves partly speculating about what people are going to do, but also trying to deal with or trying to foresee many different possibilities and do slightly different things depending on how the group as a whole actually ends up trying to relate to the project.
This is 300 computers all in one place, all autonomous, all talking to each other, all responding to the audience. And there's no way you can speculate. I mean, there's no way you can actually know what the emergent property that's going to be before you actually run it. So we just we develop intuitions over time as to what might be the best way to go about this.
Because the important thing to understand is that unlike a television monitor or a computer screen, the balloons are not really pixels that have an identity number. They don't know where they are on the surface of the balloon because they're all independent, they're all autonomous, there's no physical connection between them. And so a lot of the programming has to take account of this idea that each balloon has no idea what the balloon next to it is doing. It has no idea what signals it's receiving or indeed what colors it's putting out. And so that's a lot of what
we're doing today is, people are used to the idea that the remote control does something very specific. When they push a particular button, it turns on their DVD player or it plays the first track or something like this. And actually all we're using out of the remote controls is small blips of infrared light, and which is sort of like the nervous system. It has, the blips themselves have no real meaning, but when one of these balloons is in a particular state and it happens to be listening to it, then it changes its state and shows itself for that. And so we have this sort of, sometimes it responds, sometimes it doesn't respond, and that itself is what makes it more interesting.
And so the way the balloons respond will change depending on what point the performance is, but also depending on what somebody else has just done a few seconds before. So you will not necessarily be able to say, when I press this button, it turns yellow. You'll be able to hopefully detect that there is a change when you press the button when pointing in a particular location. But ideally, the kind of response that you'll be getting, visual response, will encourage you actually to move around and experiment to try and understand what direct effect you're having on the visuals, more or less.
Bye.